speaker. So, and she has been well claimed and known and has been on Dr. Oz's show. So, folks, you are here, and we want to welcome you, Alicia, tonight to our show to talk about food allergies.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be able to chat with your audience tonight. Hopefully, we can get people to recognize this very serious health threat that 32 million Americans face.
Yes, 32 million. I actually was getting ready to ask you about that. I just, been doing the research behind this, and it's study growing.
Mhm.
Um, and, when we look at food supplies and food chains and food things that are going on with food allergies, and like we talking about the formula, the kids' formula, the babies' formula, because of allergic reactions to the formulas. But just exactly, can you tell the audience, give a definition for what is a food allergy?
Okay, so a lot of people actually get this mixed up when it comes to a food allergy. Sometimes they mix up a food intolerance or a food sensitivity with a food allergy. An actual diagnosed food allergy is an overreaction of the immune system, where the immune system seems to think that the protein in a food that you're eating is basically like a poison, like a toxin. So the body then overreacts. And when it overreacts, the immune system goes haywire. And at that particular time, all kinds of things can happen to the body. Like you can start having extreme problems with your stomach. You can start having hives all over your body. You can start having feelings of your tongue is swelling, your lips are swelling, and also ultimately your throat can actually close and you can lose oxygen. And when you lose oxygen, then of course that loss of oxygen to the brain, unfortunately, if this is not reversed almost immediately, then unfortunately it can end up being something that could be fatal. And the good thing about it is today, in today's world, there are some emergency medications that are out there, but a lot of people just aren't doing what they need to do to have those emergency medications on hand.
And you said it. So, audience, if you know anybody who is a food has a food allergy, I would tell you to share this, and you can actually come back and catch the replay of the show because it's very important. It can be a matter of life and death, and you have become this advocate. Not just because it's like something that you felt in, but this is something that you personally have done. So you want, if you don't mind sharing, how does this, because it's been personal for you, can you share with the audience that?
Yeah, so my daughter, she was formally diagnosed when she was about 13 months old. She'd been sick like the whole first year, and we couldn't figure out what was going on with her. But then I was nursing her, and then decided to go ahead and transition her from nursing to cow's milk, and she went into an anaphylactic reaction. Subsequently, we started trying to get testing, but at 13 months old, they're a little young, so the testing is kind of like a little all over the place. At one point, she actually had 13 food allergies. So, kind of fast forward with that, I didn't see people that look like me that were out there advocating. I didn't see people that look like me that even understood what a true food allergy was, because they'd say, oh, well, I'm allergic to milk. It makes my stomach hurt. Well, it's like, maybe that's a lactose intolerance. That's not necessarily a food allergy. So you should talk to your doctor about that, right? So instead of not dealing with it, because I had to deal with it, I decided to find a group. And I found this group, and they were more like a mother's tea, have time out group. They weren't really an advocacy group. So I started my own advocacy group, started working with some of the national nonprofits around the country to really get more of an understanding, and also to get more of an understanding in my own community about what this was, because people just simply didn't get it. And they kept thinking, well, that doesn't happen to us. And it actually does. In fact, black males, boys, they are very highly susceptible to be able, to have a life-threatening food allergy. And people ignore it and say, well, they just stay away from it, or they're only going to take a little bite, or I don't really believe it, and things like that. And then when they end up in the ER, or in worst cases, when it ends up to be something else, then people are wondering, what could I have done differently? And it's really about accepting the fact that no two food allergic reactions are alike. It defies what we would think of as normal logic. Anything logical you think about a food allergy, throw it out the window, because it does what it wants to do when it wants to do it. You might have hives this time, you might have three other symptoms the next time. Either way, if it's not treated, it can be fatal.
Alicia, you just said one good thing. Our community, something, and this is something that's very educational because, again, our community, not to say, I've been there. I had the, SNAP benefits, all of that. But, when we go to those processed foods more too, can you share, is that more susceptible to food allergies than organic food? Is there a
Well,
difference?
it's not really even about that. It's more about the protein that's in the food. So whether you have an organic egg or a non-organic egg, it's about the protein that's actually in the egg itself. So a lot of times people actually have that misconception that if I eat organic, it will be
Mhm.
different. But it's not that. It's really truly about that actual protein that's in that. There's another type of way of having an allergy, which is oral allergy syndrome. Whereas with that, somebody might say, for instance, eat like a peach or a pear, and maybe their mouth will get a little bit itchy. But when they cook that peach or pear, they don't have that, and that's because their body's then confusing that protein with maybe something that's environmental, right? But all of these things to get the diagnosis, whether it's oral allergy syndrome or a true food allergy that could be life threatening, you have to go see a board certified allergist. Your pediatrician, as nice as they are, they might have been in your family for years, they might have treated everything else. They are not the person to go to for this. You have to go to a board certified allergist for this, because
All
they're the
right.
ones who are going to have all the up to date information. They're going to know the difference between an itchy mouth or a real allergy or an intolerance or something like that. And you have to know the difference, because the problem is if you don't and you wait, you may not have the medication that you need that actually could just, save your life and keep you moving along.
Alicia, you just said something that was profound. I just clicked into that, a board certified allergist. That is just like you saying, hey, you go to your regular doctor and say, well, I might have a kidney, but he sees that test, but you actually gonna go to a kidney specialist about your kidney. So again, even when you're doing, speaking to the next question, this led me to the next question that we're gonna have before we take a break. So, how and when should a person get tested for food allergy? What would make that person? Well, I mean, like what you said, your daughter was young, and she kept being sick all the time. So, was that the initiative to make you go get that food allergy test for her?
Well, really, for her, it was more reaction than anything. And the thing of it is, now my daughter, fast forward, she's 19. So things were a lot different 19 years ago than they are now, right? So there are different things that are in place now. Like there was a LEAP study that kind of really took a look at little kids and what that meant for like the age to get them diagnosed. And they do different things now where they do, they say to introduce, peanut butter early in certain situations if your doctor says so. I have to say that, right? I'm not saying so if your doctor says that. So there's some studies about early introduction being a way to be able to circumvent some of that, because a lot of these allergies really take root around the ages of 2 and 3. So there's been a lot with that early introduction type of thing. But if you start having a child that's always having like sort of like allergic type stuff going on, eczema, things of that nature, you got to get them to an allergist anyway. So they're going to be the ones that are going to monitor them, and they're going to be the ones to say that, you know what, at some point we're going to need to test for this, that, or the other. The whole key is to make sure that you're going to the right doctors. Again, pediatricians are great, but they're general practitioners, right? So let them practice generally. And if they're not willing to give you a referral to go see a board certified allergist, call your insurance company, get a new pediatrician, get somebody to get that referral, because you better off safe than sorry.
So we have a comment from Lisa Dove Washington. She asked a question. We have a couple of questions here. We got a couple of comments. Thank you, Lisa D. Wilson, for joining us. She says, good evening. Hello, Gaither Taylor. Thank you for joining us tonight. But Lisa Dove Washington has a question. The question is, can you outgrow an allergy?
Yes, in some cases, people do outgrow food allergies, but the only way to be sure that you have outgrown a food allergy is to work again with your board certified allergist, and they'll do things like skin testing. In some cases, they'll do blood testing, but skin testing is typically more the norm. And then they will also do something called a food challenge, which has to be done under medical supervision. We don't want to do that in our house. That is not safe to do that. And then they will, once they feel that you have gotten to a point that you seem to have grown out of it based on your skin test, based on your history, then they will at that point decide that they're going to ask if you want to do a food challenge. And that's how you're going to find out whether or not you've grown out of that. There are people who won't grow out of their food allergies. We're seeing people keeping them longer than before. Usually kids used to grow out of them by the time they were like maybe in high school or something like that. We're seeing them into college. We're seeing them in the workplace. We're also seeing people in like 30 and over who are suddenly developing shellfish allergies, right? So we see that. And they're like, well, I ate shellfish my whole life. And it's like, yeah, well, it's kind of like anything, like you said, the reference about your kidney worked your whole life too. Then one day it decided not to, in a certain situation, and, unfortunately, and that can happen. The immune system changes, and think about the environment that we're in. There are a lot of thoughts behind why it's happening, but I think it's more complex than it is simple. So the reality is we just have to make sure that we keep people safe and we stay vigilant, and make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do to make sure that you're going to be okay. Because even if you have a reaction, you want to make sure you have those meds on hand.
That's right. And we are going to be taking a quick break with my special guest here, Miss Alicia Word, who is a phenomenal food allergy advocate. Listen, if you got a couple of friends you want to like and share this, tell them to come on, because we have a specialist person here for you, which also, when we come back, when she talks about support groups, we got a lot of information to give out. So stay right back. We'll grab some tea, and we'll coming right back to the Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul, where I'm your host, Michelle Bolden Hammond. Welcome back to the Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul, where I'm your host, Michelle Bolden Hammond. And I'm here tonight with my special guest, Miss Alicia Word, who is a food allergist advocate. And let me tell you that she has, everybody loves Dr. Oz. This lady has been on Dr. Oz show, featured on his show right with him. And I've seen it for myself. So I try to go back and get the video, but I couldn't find a little bit of archive. But she knows what she's talking about, and she has a personal life experience with this regarding her daughter. And prior to this, there was just something happened, which is going to lead me into the next question. About, we have our children, we go into schools. You remember how I know things have changed compared to when I was in school, where you used to have the den mother bring in the cupcakes and the cookies, the candies, and all that type of stuff. So now you can walk through the schools and they don't have who the child is due to HIPAA, but now on classrooms, you'll see this is some child with the allergies. So saying all of that, would you say, is it best and the secure of advocating, because you wouldn't think to do this, to advocate for a 504 plan in the educational system for your child who has a food
Absolutely.
allergy?
Absolutely. I'll cutting you off. Absolutely. Yes, cutting you off. 504 is where you're going to be able to protect your child's rights. The thing of it is, people don't think that they qualify for a 504 because the 504 accommodation talks about, a major disability, right? Well, a major disability is going to affect, quality of life, like things that you need to live. You need to live, eat, you need to breathe, right? Those are major life functions. So it does. And when you have a diagnosis, these are what we call IgE allergies, right? So when you have one of these allergies where your throat's going to close, right, at that point, that could potentially affect your life, a major life function. So you are going to qualify, but there are some steps that you have to take with that. You've got to get documentation. Guess who's going to give you that documentation? Not your pediatrician, but your board certified allergist, because they know how to write the letters in the right way to make sure that the schools do what they need to do. If you don't have your documentation right, they might say, well, no, they don't need a 504 for this. And a lot of times, listen, I think teachers are great. I think sometimes administrators are great, but there are times where, they say, well, we're friends. It's fine. We'll take care of your child. When you do that, you are not securing their rights. You have to secure their rights. And that 504 accommodation, you're going to put these things in writing. If you don't put it in writing, it didn't happen. So you've got to be able to do that. So what accommodations you need? What about if your child does an after school program? Who's going to carry the epinephrine, right? Do they know how to administer? Have the teachers been able to be trained on how to administer, right? What about what the classroom protocols are? I personally don't think any food belongs in the classroom, because I think the classroom is for learning, and I think that food is a distraction aside from food allergies. But you've got kids with diabetes, you have kids with religious situations that you have to deal with. My daughter was bullied. She had a group of kids that said they were from the Peanut Chasers Club, and they wanted to see what was happening to her. There was a group of kids that held trail mix over her head. Kids will pick on other kids for stuff because sometimes they don't realize the magnitude, but even sometimes they do. And it's just one of those things where you've got to be able to put those rights in place for your child and make sure that the school is doing their job, you're doing your job, all your paperwork is taken care of, and there are no excuses because you got one of whatever. You might have 12 children, but if you got one Jessica, you got one Jessica, and Jessica's not replaceable. So we got to make sure that Jessica's rights are in place.
See, that's why I brought that out, because a lot of parents will settle for, oh, well, we'll make sure, but you need to
No.
do the right process and get that 504 plan. No matter no matter how much money it might cost the school with that 504 plan, you need to advocate. And this is why I thank you so much, Alicia, for saying yes, because that's what we do here at Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul. We try to get the information up for your mind, your body, and your soul, because all three work together for that one reason, to keep you here. And while you're here, you need to keep your mind right, you need to keep your body correct, and you need to get that soul correct. So I appreciate you for bringing that out and coming with that. And then you just brought up the next thing that I said, as me working in the counselor roles and stuff that I do, there's a safety plan for those who do domestic violence. Okay, there is a recovery plan for those who are in recovery. So my question to you is, should there be a food allergy action plan? And what are the steps in the food allergy action plan? Uh-oh, I think we lost her. Okay, she's coming back in. We know how technology is, so
I'm
we.
here.
I was gonna look. I was waiting on, because we was gonna go to another commercial, but you're here. So when I just before the technology problem, we talked about safety plans. So explain what you would do in the rescue of a food allergy action plan, the steps in that.
Okay, so when you're thinking about a food allergy action plan, I have to tell you, so just a little disclaimer, I'm speaking today on behalf of myself, right? But I also do some work with a national nonprofit. That organization's name is FACT. And FACT has a great food allergy action plan that you can actually use on their website. And so with your food allergy action plan, it's going to give you all the steps that you need to take, meaning that it's going to give you an idea of the symptoms to look for, so you know that as a child is going into anaphylaxis. It's going to tell you what some of those things are to look for. It's going to tell you, to get that medication. It's going to tell you to call 911. It's going to tell you to who the emergency contacts are for the parents. It's going to have the information about the doctor as well. And the thing is, once you administer epinephrine, 911 has to be called, because they've got to be able to observe. And the one thing that people miss when it comes to those sorts of things too, when they actually make that 911 call, every state has different rules when it comes to their EMTs and their paramedics, right? EMTs in my home state did not carry epinephrine on their bus. Okay. I live in
Ooh.
Georgia now. Same thing. You need a paramedic. You need to ask for advanced life support. That needs to be in your action plan, that you have to ask for advanced life support. I will be very transparent. We had a situation this past weekend with my own daughter. We did everything right. We asked all the right questions. Unfortunately, the place that we went, there was cross contamination. They didn't do everything right. So we had a situation. And when we made the request to get, assistance, someone said, "Oh, she's having an asthma attack." No, she wasn't having an asthma attack. They need to know, when you call 911, what is happening, so that they dispatch the right people. That is so very important. But if you put that in your action plan, that makes it a lot easier, because during those situations, minutes, seconds count, and you need people to have all the right information. And these EpiPens, they're single use medication. You'll get two of them in a pack, right? So you want to be able to know, how to use them, when to use them, how long do I have if I have to be able to administer the second one. All of that stuff is going to be in your action plan, and your board certified allergist is going to be the one who's going to be able to give you that information. And I have to tell you, if you don't know anything about, epinephrine, there was a lot of controversy a few years ago about the cost, about that. And I was actually, my family was featured in a documentary, which you can find, it's on YouTube now. It was on Amazon Prime, and it's called Drugs, the Price We Pay. And it talks about the epinephrine. It talks about anaphylaxis. It talks about the costs associated with it and the things that you've got to do. So that's also another place where you can get some reference information about that. But that action plan is going to be key. And it's yet another piece that is going to secure, the rights of your child, and make sure that they actually have a plan of what to do. What if there's a substitute and the teacher's not there that day? If you've got that action plan, it needs to be in the classroom, it needs to be in the office, it needs to be with the nurse, and also a copy of it needs to be in your child's bag.
All right, great information, everyone. So this is just the not even the top of the surface on. You need to look her up and follow Alicia, because she has some good contact. I'm pretty sure there's some workshops, support. Now, she just gave you said where to find at the nonprofit that you work with is FACT. Is that FACT?
It's the acronym is FAACT, but you'll find them at foodallergyawareness.org. And again, just the disclaimer, I'm here speaking on behalf of me as the advocate today, not on behalf of FACT, but I do speak very highly of FACT's resources that are there, because I've had the opportunity to work with them over the years on the documents that they have. They have information for support groups. They have information for families. They have information for grandparents. They have information for schools. They have information for healthcare providers. There's information that's out there. There's so much information that's available through them, as well as some other organizations that are out there. There's another organization, Fairs out there. There's Northwestern has some programs that they work on, where they give you information on the studies. There's a lot of organizations that are out there doing some really great things. Again, I have more of an affiliation with FACT. However, as long as you get your action plan, and your action plan has what it needs in it, just get it. That's the whole point. Just get it.
All right. So, I'm telling you, people, this is some good information for you guys who catch the replay. We're going to have her information dotted down inside the um, comment section as soon as we're get done here tonight. But the one question that that was when you were talking to Efferner that I was getting ready to ask you, because I remember a while back when I had you on a couple years before, there was this, cost and high price. And has that changed and gotten better since, since the last 2 years ago, that when I had you on early, when a previous podcast that I was hosting?
The medication is still relatively expensive. What they've done, there are other providers of it that are out there now. So you'll have everything from the EpiPen to there's IntelliJect, there's also the AviQ, there's some generic epinephrine pens as well. For my particular family, one of the ones that I personally like to use, we will use both. We'll use what we need to use, right? So we've used EpiPen, we've used AviQ. AviQ is a talking device. And when you pull it open, it actually talks you through the steps of what to do. Because maybe you forgot, maybe you haven't done it in a while. Maybe, somebody new was doing it. Maybe the child has to administer themselves depending on their age. So that's that it's smaller. It's smaller than, not that I advocate smoking cigarettes. I do not. But it's smaller than a pack of cigarettes. And they slide, right into your bag, or the EpiPens, but either way, whichever one you use, you have to always be mindful, because with the epinephrine medicine itself, it is sensitive to temperature. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't leave it in a hot car or a
Mm-hmm.
cold car, because then your medicine will be impacted. And in a state, in an emergency, you're not going to want that to happen. So whatever one you choose to use, you just have to get it. And as far
And
as the cost is concerned, the one thing I'll say about the most of them have some sort of prescription assistance plan now,
okay.
where you can get support with that. I know that with the AVQs, they have a program where they'll try to put it through your insurance and see if it's a part of the formulary with your insurance. But if not, they do have another patient assistance program that does make it reasonably priced. And I do know that with the EpiPen, they were working on something with that, but I'm not quite sure where they are in their process.
All right. So again, this is some good information. And because medicine, it shouldn't be, because it's supposed to help you, right? It shouldn't be. But I'm glad that some things have, policies, I think, have been working on a couple of things with different types of disorder, diabetes, all of those type of, autoimmune different things is coming to. So the last question before it's like you just got here. We got some more information. So, one of the questions, do you foresee a cure for food allergies?
Hmm. I'd like to. Um, at this time, I don't see a cure, but I see hope for treatment options. Um, we've been hoping for a cure for a long time, but it's like with anything, this is an autoimmune issue, and as you know, autoimmune diseases are very difficult to navigate,
They
and
are.
there are a lot of them.
They are.
So, considering at this current time, there are 9 foods that comprise 90% of all severe food allergic reactions. But then there are also additional foods. Just because it's not in that 9 doesn't mean somebody can't be allergic to something, right? You can be allergic to just about any food. And that's part of the issue, right? So how do you treat something where one person's allergic to garlic, but another person is allergic to fish, or another person's allergic to eggs, or if you have complex situations like in our family where we have multiple food allergies, and not just my daughter, but my son also has a food allergy as well. His didn't present until much later. And it's not a traditional food allergy, it's blueberries, right? And it's just, we can't figure out for the life of us how that even happened. My daughter kind of, she had the standard 8 plus, at one point. But there are other things that people are allergic to. So, from a cure perspective, it would be great. But at least right now, let's do something at a minimum to make it not life threatening. That's my hope for now.
And you have advocated well. So, in reference to any support groups, were, like you said, you gave out one of the resources that you knew. Are there any support groups, or how can someone get in contact with you to get more information? Or, because like you said, you took the lead to address that with the community. because you
Yeah.
know you like there was no representation, and you got the guilt for that. You was like, hey, this is happening in my community, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the forefront. I don't see nobody else do it. So just think about it. I just want to encourage you, keep doing what you're doing. And again, what I can do here at Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul to advocate for it, even let's say the month when it's food allergy month, to have you come back on and maybe with some of the other resources. So which month do we could is I know there's a special month that is obtained to that, and what can we do for to advocate more for that during that month?
Well, we just passed it, which was May. So we just had Food Allergy Awareness Month, which is fine. So it's funny because I have my own grassroots organization called Compassion for Anaphylaxis, and it really was about showing more compassion to people in our community. It started out when I was doing things in the Delaware area as part of the Food Allergic Multicultural Society, because I believe that there is a diversity, equity, and inclusion component to that was the mark was being missed on that, right? So when I first started this, people didn't look like me. The commercials, they didn't look like me. They didn't live like me. They didn't eat like me. So I wanted to be able to hit, that component. And then I also realized that with families, whether it's, unfortunately a full loss or just a loss of your lifestyle, right? There's a grief component to this, because we can't go, my kid can't get invited to this, or we don't go to this party, or we have to bring our food. That sort of stuff is you
Mm-hmm.
grieve the loss of what you think life is supposed to be like, not realizing, what, it's all different for everybody. So if you have to bring food versus somebody else, maybe that food's nasty anyway. You might not even want it. But anyway, and the thing of it is that it's all normal. Every bit of it is normal, because your normal is your normal, my normal is my normal. And it's from that perspective on Instagram, Compassion for Anaphylaxis is my grassroots page. And then you can also go on to, like I said, that organization, in fact, foodallergyawareness.org. They actually have a list of the support groups in all 50 states. So you'll be able to find a support group in your state. They also have a guide in the event that you want to start a support group, and you'll be able to have the step-by-step support to be able to start a support group in your area. And you can do that, whether it be for kids or even for adults as well. So there are lots of support groups out there. People would be surprised. Sometimes people are like, I didn't even know there was one in my state, because people just don't realize that it's actually there.
All right. So again, everyone, we are here tonight and we're talking about food allergen. I will ask you if you know someone who is suffering from a food allergen. You can actually share this video with them, and reach out to Miss Word, because again, she is a domino effect of being a food allergist advocate, and that's what we want people to survive. And she gives you the tools, she gives you the tips on how and the strategies on what you want. And again, if those of you who have not put a food allergy plan, a fact in plan, you need to do that right away. Carry it with you. Though any typical thing that can save your life. And like she said, just to recap, make sure your pediatrician is fine, your general practitioner is fine, but a board certified, a board certified allergist is who you're gonna use to help you along and diagnose you. And then please don't be afraid to go to those schools with those 504 plans, because I know I had to go to one about something too. And I know it might look a little tricky on them numbers on what they want to do, but you got to advocate, because again, this is a matter of life and death. So again, Alicia, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight to Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul. And again, looking great forward to do more work with you, get your word out, message out. And I want to thank you for tuning in. And for the audience, those who are on now and those who may be reaching out later to catch the replay, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul, where I'm your host, Michelle Bolden Hammond. And listen, we only have 3 more weeks left. But next week, DJ Moscato is going to be back in here in the house, and Samara Self Care Corner will be here next week. So again, this is a therapy session that if you have some, come willing. to be practice some self-care at Samara's Corner. And just in regards to say, if no one has told you that you are loved, just know that you are loved here at the Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul. Have a blessed week. And until next Tuesday, come back.
Thank you.